In the late 1500s, as Spanish settlers pushed west, the lands of Utah were mostly peaceful. The native tribes that inhabited these lands had a similar language, but remained different enough to cause some clashes. The Ute tribe, one of the oldest continuous inhabitants of the Wasatch Range, held claim to much of the land.
We always fought over territory. The different tribes always, the Utes, Salt Lake Valley was kind of a buffer zone between the Utes to the south and the Shoshone to the north. And some of our people got a little bit too far, they'd be attacked by Shoshone. If the Shoshone ventured too far south, they would be attacked. Same with the Goshutes. We ventured too far to the west, there'd be problems. If we strayed too far into, or if they strayed into our country, there'd be conflict.
While skirmishes became more frequent as populations grew, there is no record of the complete destruction of one particular tribe or people. There were mainly catfights, where one or two would be killed or wounded, and the fighting would back off. This changed with the introduction of European settlers and their guns.
The relationships with the early Spaniards and the Mormon settlers and the other American people varied. At one time, relations were good, and then they would turn sour as more and more people moved into the area. I think one of the classic exchanges occurred right here in the Salt Lake Valley when the Mormons entered the valley in 1847. Both the Ute bands and the Shoshone bands were eager to meet with Brigham Young. The thinking was that the first one to get to meet the new European arrivals, will have access to firearms that can be used against the enemy.
While peace prevailed in early years, as more people came to settle the valley, the number of livestock increased, and with it, the amount of land needed to support the livestock. As fences were erected and wild grasses consumed, the resource became fragmented and stretched.
Contrary to popular belief, the wars or the conflicts that broke out in this area were over economic means, had to do with natural resources, and not unprovoked warfare and massacres. I mean, these things occurred over scarce resources, as most wars began. So we need to cut the misinformation in a lot of the textbooks and the books that Hollywood producers read, I guess, and start getting to the truth of the matter, that the wars here were the same as any other place. It was over resources.
It was getting harder for Ute hunters to locate wild deer and elk, and easier to find domesticated cattle and sheep. Native people were forced into farming, a culture that was hard to assimilate for the Utes.
And immediately what the Mormon settlers set out to do is to convert the Utes to the Mormon religion, number one, and then number two, to convert them to farming, neither of which worked very well for the Utes.
As the Ute bands were herded onto reservations, most withdrew from the flourishing burgs that were sprouting up around Utah. Isolation prevented assimilation, causing deprivation.
I don't think it's possible to make successful white Indians. I think we need to be allowed to be who we are, and then allowed to adapt, and adapt on our terms to what works for us. But to force assimilation onto culturally and racially different people is, I don't think it works very well.